Hey everyone, hope you're doing well today. Welcome to the latest episode of my web series, The Best of Mr. Hollywood. I am Wade Allen, and I'm a 20-year collector of entertainment memorabilia. I have costumes used on TV and in movies. I have scripts. I have thousands of autographed pictures. I've met thousands of movie stars and Hollywood personalities, and my friends always love my stories, so that's what inspired me to start this web series to share my stories with all of you. Hope you're doing well today in quarantine or wherever you're at. Today I want to talk about director and actor Garry Marshall. Garry Marshall was a very special man, and if you saw the ABC TV special 2 nights ago, it was called The Happy Days of Garry Marshall, and it was on in the evening, and it's still available for streaming on Hulu if you want to go there. I've actually seen it twice. I watched it when it aired and then watched it again the next day over lunch, and it's such a moving and fitting tribute to a man who had been making stars and who made our favorite sitcoms that we all grew up loving, and then amazingly went into movie directing and then created some of the biggest classics of my lifetime, which is so cool. First of all, I would like to tell you my connection to Garry Marshall. I have a little small connection. We met one time, and it was so memorable. You meet a lot of people I meet a lot of people in Hollywood, and some people are memorable and some people aren't. This was February 2016 in Beverly Hills at an after Oscars party. It was on Oscar night, and the ceremony was over and the parties were beginning, and I was at the Night of 100 Stars dinner party. And it was at the Beverly Hilton Hotel in Beverly Hills, where I love to stay. And I walked out on the veranda, and I looked over, and seated in a chaise lounge was Garry Marshall in a black tuxedo with, we just looked so dapper. And I remember thinking, holy cow, it's Garry Marshall. I mean, he's like larger than life, you know? So I walked over to him, just out of the blue. He was sitting there, he was with 2 other ladies, but he was not talking to them. He was just laid back in his chair, and he looked so comfortable. And I walked over and extended my hand and shook his hand, and I said, good evening, sir. How are you doing tonight? And he had this gusto and this accent that, oh my gosh, I will never forget what he told me. He looked at me in the eye and he said, I'm Garry Marshall. I'm Penny's brother. Penny, she goes to the late parties, I go to the early parties. I was like, oh my gosh, he's so humble, he doesn't even think I know who he is. Of course I know who you are, Mr. Garry Marshall, sir. So I shook his hand and I said, it's so nice to meet you. He said, where are you from? I said, I'm from North Carolina. He said, I'm from the Bronx. I knew you wasn't from the Bronx. So cool. So I told him, thank you for your body of work. And it was so cool to sit there for just a moment and tell him thank you for creating so many memorable moments on film and in television. We're talking about a man who started so many decades ago in the 50s writing for the Dick Van Dyke Show. And he came to Hollywood wanting to write for Lucille Ball and Dick Van Dyke. And Garry Marshall's career absolutely took off. He was the producer of The Odd Couple, which starred Jack Klugman, and Tony Randall. You may remember that classic TV show. And then he gave us so many wonderful shows. He gave us Happy Days. He gave us Laverne and Shirley, Mork and Mindy. So many wonderful shows. And along the way, he discovered so many talented performers like Henry Winkler, Marion Ross, who was already a movie star, but he made her a TV star. Robin Williams. These people who would go on to have huge careers on the basis of the shows that Garry created. Just unbelievable. I mean, I don't know if we would know who Robin Williams was if not for Mork and Mindy. I mean, that was his big break. That was his first time on primetime. That was the sitcom to watch. And I think by him being on that show, that called his talent to the attention of so many people. And it wasn't long before, he was a big star. And but if not for Mork and Mindy, you wonder what would have happened. You really do. And so I think we just owed Garry Marshall a tremendous debt. He went on to be a huge, big-time movie director. He directed Beaches. You may remember Beaches with Bette Midler. The Flamingo Kid. The biggest movie he ever had, Pretty Woman. You remember Pretty Woman with Richard Gere and Julia Roberts? He would direct them again in 1999 in Runaway Bride. So many incredible films. Moving a little more currently, he directed The Princess Diaries, The Princess Diaries 2, Royal Engagement. He had so many wonderful movies. Valentine's Day. His last feature film was called Mother's Day. And that starred Julia Roberts and Jennifer Aniston. It also had Kate Hudson in it. That movie was wonderful. I went to see it in the theater. It was such a treat. And it turned out to be Garry Marshall's last film. And what a way to go out, though. He passed away 5 months after I met him in 2016. He had had a stroke, and he passed away over at a hospital over in Burbank, California. And if you watch the Moving TV special, some of his friends in show business will tell you about their last memories of him and going to visit him in the hospital. Henry Winkler went, John Stamos. It seemed like everybody got a chance to say goodbye, which is really nice. Today, Garry Marshall is very much remembered in Hollywood. It's hard to forget somebody with such tremendous talent and gusto. He just had this. My 5 minutes with him was just so eye-opening. I had heard good stories about him forever. My friend Christine Lakin, who was in TV's Step by Step as a little kid, she played Al Lambert on Step by Step. She had a wonderful working relationship with Garry Marshall. She appeared in many of his plays and musicals at the Falcon Theater that he opened in Burbank, California, which is now called the Garry Marshall Theater in his honor. And I have been there many times, and it's always a pleasure to go there and to support his legacy by attending shows, performances, fundraisers, however I can. When I'm in town, if they're having an event there at Garry Marshall Theater, I make sure to go because he was just a wonderful, wonderful man and deserves to be remembered as such. One of the most memorable visits I've had to the Garry Marshall Theater there in Burbank was just a few years ago. They had a screening of The Princess Diaries with some of the original cast members, and I got to go and watch the movie in its entirety. I got there early so I could see some of the memorabilia on display, which was really cool. I got to meet some of the cast members afterward and get some autographs and photos with them. It was a really cool trip down memory lane. And if you haven't seen the Princess Diaries movie in a while, it is absolutely Disney and Garry Marshall magic. He had a way of taking scripts that could be a little darker and making them so full of light and love. And he was known for many different talents. But when I think about Garry Marshall, when I think of the essence, it's just brilliant timing. He was a great person who believed that life was bigger than show business. Life was more important than show business. I've heard people tell me that he said that. He had seemed to have a wonderful family life, long marriage to his wife Barbara, and their children. I have met some of them before. All nice people. They just love to carry on his legacy, and how wonderful is that? Garry Marshall is one of the few people who just come through, maybe, once in a lifetime, who just give us so much joy and so many reasons to smile. And I saw a quote the other day from him, and it said something to the effect of, I never wanted to change the world, I wanted to entertain the world. Well, Garry Marshall, sir, you certainly entertained the world, and I was privileged to have had a few minutes in your company that evening, and I will never forget it. Absolutely. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Goodbye.